The first battle erupted near Jupiter's moons, where Commander Tony Rodriguez had positioned his makeshift defense force. His fleet consisted of mining ships, cargo haulers, and construction vessels that had been hastily converted for combat. Against the sleek Zaphirian warships, they looked like children's toys facing professional weapons. Rodriguez watched the enemy formation approach on his tactical display. 3 Zaphirian ships moved with perfect precision, their hulls gleaming under Jupiter's reflected light. His own force numbered 20 vessels, but he knew the numerical advantage meant nothing against such superior technology. "All ships, remember the plan," he broadcast to his captains. "We cannot match their firepower, so we will not try. Hit-and-run tactics only. Make them chase us through the asteroid field." The Zaphirian commander, Admiral Zexthor, observed the human formation with mild interest. The enemy ships moved in chaotic patterns, showing none of the disciplined coordination he expected from military vessels. Their weapons were primitive energy projectors and chemical missile systems that posed no threat to modern shielding. "Begin the assault," Zexthor commanded. "Standard formation. Disable their engines first, then demand surrender." But when the Zaphirian ships opened fire, the humans did something unexpected. Instead of maintaining formation and trading volleys like civilized opponents, they scattered in all directions. Some headed for the dense asteroid field around Jupiter. Others dove toward the gas giant's upper atmosphere, and a few actually accelerated directly at the Zaphirian ships. Rodriguez piloted his converted ore hauler directly at the nearest enemy vessel, his ship's hull reinforced with salvaged metal plates. As Zaphirian energy beams struck his shields, he broadcast to his crew, "Brace for impact. We're going to ram them." The Zaphirian captain had never encountered such tactics. Ramming attacks were considered barbaric and ineffective against modern shielding. Yet as the human ship struck his vessel's flank, the collision caused significant damage to both hulls. The human ship broke apart, but the explosion disabled several of the Zaphirian's weapon systems. "Impossible," Zexthor muttered as he watched 2 more human ships execute similar suicide attacks. "No civilized species fights like this." Captain Amy Collins piloted her mining ship into the asteroid field, using her superior knowledge of the local environment to her advantage. The Zaphirian ships that followed her found themselves navigating through dense rock formations while being attacked by weapons fire from multiple directions. Collins had hidden missile launchers throughout the asteroid belt weeks earlier, operated by crews who volunteered to remain behind in the dangerous position. As the alien ships pursued her vessel, these hidden weapons opened fire from all sides. The Zaphirian shields absorbed most of the damage, but the constant harassment from multiple angles prevented them from bringing their superior firepower to bear effectively. They were forced to maneuver constantly to avoid collisions with the asteroids, while human ships darted between the rocks like insects. "Sir, we are taking damage from weapons hidden throughout this field," reported Zexthor's tactical officer. "The humans have turned this entire region into a trap." Zexthor felt the first stirrings of concern. His ships were individually superior to anything the humans possessed, but these primitive creatures were fighting in ways that defied all military logic. They showed no regard for their own lives, using their ships as weapons when conventional tactics failed. The battle continued for hours, with human ships emerging from hiding places throughout the outer system. They attacked in small groups, struck hard, and disappeared before the Zaphirians could respond effectively. When cornered, they often chose to ram enemy vessels rather than surrender. Lieutenant Dan Hughes commanded a squadron of converted cargo ships that had been equipped with improvised weapons. His tactics involved using the ship's industrial equipment as weapons, deploying mining charges and construction lasers against enemy hulls. "Target their sensor arrays," Hughes ordered his crews. "If we cannot penetrate their shields, we will blind them instead." His ship swarmed around a Zaphirian cruiser, using welding torches and plasma cutters designed for salvage work to damage external sensors and communication equipment. The aliens found their sophisticated targeting systems degraded by crude but effective industrial tools. The Zaphirian response was swift and brutal. Energy weapons designed to destroy planets fired at individual human ships, obliterating them in single shots. But for every human vessel destroyed, 2 more seemed to appear from hidden positions throughout the system. Admiral Foster coordinated the defense from Earth's orbital command station, watching the battle unfold through the reports of her scattered forces. "The losses were horrific. with human ships being destroyed at a ratio of 4-1. But the aliens were taking casualties too, ma'am. We have confirmation that 2 Zaphirian ships have been severely damaged, reported her tactical officer. The ramming attacks are working, but at terrible cost. Foster studied the tactical display, analyzing patterns in the alien formations. They fight like they expect us to behave rationally. But desperate people do not follow military protocol. Captain Lisa Parker commanded the Defiance in the inner system, preparing for the aliens' inevitable advance toward Earth. Her ship was one of humanity's most advanced vessels, but she knew it was still centuries behind Zaphirian technology. All stations, prepare for close-quarters combat, she announced. When they reach Earth orbit, we will not give them the planet without a fight. As news of the outer system battles reached Earth's population, something unprecedented happened. Civilian volunteers began modifying their personal spacecraft for combat. Transport pilots, racing enthusiasts, and even wealthy individuals with private ships demanded to join the fight. Dr. Kate Morgan worked frantically in her laboratory, studying wreckage from destroyed Zaphirian vessels that had been recovered by human salvage teams. The alien technology was incredibly advanced, but it was also specialized for fighting opponents who used conventional military tactics. Their shields are designed to absorb energy weapons and deflect guided missiles, she explained to Admiral Foster. But they are vulnerable to kinetic impacts at specific frequencies. If we can modify our weapons to exploit this weakness. The research took precious time, but Morgan's team managed to develop new ammunition that could partially penetrate Zaphirian shielding. The improvement was marginal, but it gave human forces their first real hope of inflicting meaningful damage on their enemies. As the battle moved toward the inner planets, both sides began to understand that this war would be unlike anything either had experienced before. The Zaphirians possessed overwhelming technological superiority, but the humans fought with a desperation and creativity that made them far more dangerous than their primitive weapons suggested. Zexthor found himself facing something he had never encountered in decades of conquest, an enemy that refused to accept the logic of defeat. Every tactical manual in the Zaphirian military assumed that inferior opponents would surrender when faced with overwhelming force. These humans seemed incapable of surrender. They fought until their ships were destroyed, then used the wreckage as weapons. They turned industrial equipment into improvised armaments and civilian vessels into suicide bombers. Most disturbing of all, they appeared to be learning and adapting their tactics with each engagement. "Admiral, shall I request reinforcements?" asked his tactical officer. Zexthor considered the question carefully. His pride rejected the idea that primitive humans could require additional forces, but his military experience warned him that underestimating any enemy was dangerous. "Not yet," he decided. "We will press the attack on their homeworld. Once Earth falls, their resistance will collapse." But as his fleet advanced toward the inner system, Zexthor had no idea that the humans were preparing their most desperate gambit yet. Jake Morrison sat in the command chair of his patrol ship, watching the outer edge of the solar system through the main viewer. The converted cargo hauler was not much to look at, but it had served him well during his 3 years patrolling the space lanes between Earth and Mars. His crew of 12 worked quietly at their stations, monitoring communications and scanning for unusual activity. The ship's sensors suddenly picked up an energy signature unlike anything in their databases. Morrison leaned forward, studying the readings that appeared on his tactical display. The signature was moving fast, much faster than any human ship could travel, and it was heading directly toward the inner system. "Contact bearing 27 Mark IV, called out Lieutenant Sarah Collins from the sensor station. "Unknown vessel, definitely not human design." Morrison felt his pulse quicken. First contact with an alien species had always been a possibility, but Earth scientists had debated whether it would happen in their lifetimes. "Can you get a visual?" The main screen flickered and resolved into an image that made Morrison's breath catch. The alien ship was sleek and deadly, its dark hull covered in weapon ports and sensor arrays. It was easily twice the size of his patrol vessel and radiated menace even while maintaining distance. "Sir, should I alert Earth Command?" Collins asked, her voice tight with excitement and fear. "Not yet. Let's try to make contact first." Morrison activated the communication system and broadcast on multiple frequencies. "Unknown vessel, this is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth Patrol Ship Defender. Please identify yourself and state your intentions in this system." For several minutes there was no response. The alien ship continued its approach, scanning Morrison's vessel with energy beams that made his hull plates vibrate. Then a voice responded, speaking perfect English through some kind of translation system. "Human vessel, you will withdraw immediately. This system is under investigation by the Zaphirian Empire." Morrison exchanged glances with his bridge crew. The tone was not friendly, and the word empire suggested these aliens had significant military power behind them. "Zaphirian ship, you are entering sovereign human space. We request that you identify your purpose here and submit to standard customs inspection." The alien's response came immediately. "Humans do not have the authority to make such demands. Your species will soon understand its place in the natural order." The threat was unmistakable. Morrison realized he was facing the advanced scout of an invasion force. "All stations, battle alert. Collins, transmit our sensor readings to Earth Command immediately." The Zaphirian ship suddenly accelerated, moving with impossible speed toward Morrison's position. Energy weapons lanced out, striking the human vessel's shields and causing explosions throughout the ship. Morrison felt the deck buck beneath his feet as his ship's systems strained to absorb the assault. "Return fire," he commanded, knowing his weapons were hopelessly outmatched. The defender's energy cannons spat coherent light at the alien vessel, but the beams seemed to have no effect on its shielding. The Zaphirian ship circled like a predator, striking again and again with surgical precision. Morrison's engineering officer called out damage reports as systems failed throughout the ship. "Hull breaches on decks 3 and 4. Life support is failing in the aft sections. Engines are operating at 30% capacity." The alien ship could have destroyed them easily, Morrison realized. Instead, it was taking detailed scans while delivering just enough damage to disable their ability to fight back effectively. This was not a battle, it was a clinical examination. "Sir, I'm detecting massive energy buildup in their forward weapons array," Collins reported. "They're preparing to finish us." Morrison made a desperate decision. "All hands, prepare for ramming speed. If we're going down, we'll make sure they remember us." But before he could execute his final attack, the Zaphirian ship suddenly withdrew, accelerating away from the battle site at incredible speed. Morrison watched in confusion as his enemy disappeared into the darkness between stars. Why did they leave? Collins wondered aloud. Morrison studied the tactical display, trying to understand what had just happened. "They got what they came for. They scanned our ship, tested our weapons, and learned everything they needed to know about our capabilities. Within hours, Morrison's report reached Earth Command, where Admiral Grace Foster read it with growing alarm. The implications were clear. Humanity had been discovered by a hostile alien empire, and their military technology was vastly inferior to what they now faced. Emergency meetings convened in every major capital on Earth. Military leaders, scientists, and government officials struggled to comprehend the magnitude of the threat. The Zaphirian scout had demonstrated technology that surpassed humanity's best efforts by centuries. Dr. Kate Morgan, Earth's leading expert on theoretical physics, addressed the emergency session. "Based on the energy readings Captain Morrison recorded, their ships can travel at least 10 times faster than our vessels. Their weapons appear to use focused gravitational fields rather than traditional energy projection. Most disturbing, their shielding technology seems to render our current weapons completely ineffective." President Helen Brooks listened to the reports with growing dread. "How long do we have?" "Unknown," Admiral Foster replied. "If they're conducting reconnaissance, we must assume the main force will arrive soon. We need to mobilize every available resource." Across human space, the call went out. Every colony, every orbital station, every ship that could carry weapons was pressed into service. Mining vessels were retrofitted with missile launchers. Cargo haulers received armor plating and energy cannons. Civilian pilots volunteered for what everyone knew would be a hopeless fight. Captain Lisa Parker took command of the defense vessel Defiance, one of humanity's newest warships. Even she knew her ship was primitive compared to what they faced, but she was determined to make the aliens pay for every inch of space they claimed. On Mars, Commander Tony Rodriguez organized the defense of the outer colonies. His forces consisted mainly of converted industrial ships crewed by miners and construction workers who had never seen combat. They trained frantically, knowing their lives depended on learning quickly. The waiting was almost worse than battle would be. Every day brought reports of strange energy signatures at the edge of the system. Long-range scanners detected movement in the darkness between stars, but the aliens remained just beyond clear detection. Then, exactly 1 week after Morrison's encounter, they came. 12 ships emerged from hyperspace at the outer edge of the solar system, each one larger and more heavily armed than the scout vessel. They moved in perfect formation, radiating confidence and overwhelming power. At their head was a massive command ship bristling with weapons that could obliterate planets. The Zaphirian fleet broadcast on all human frequencies simultaneously. Admiral Kethvar's voice carried the weight of absolute authority as he delivered his ultimatum. Humans of the Sol system, you have been evaluated and found suitable for incorporation into the Zaphirian Empire. You will surrender immediately and submit to Imperial authority. Resistance will result in the destruction of your species. You have 1 hour to comply. President Brooks responded personally, her voice steady despite the fear that gripped every human who heard the alien demands. We reject your ultimatum. Humanity will not surrender its freedom to anyone. Kethavar's reply came swiftly. Then you have chosen extinction. Begin the assault. The war for humanity's survival had begun. Admiral Kethavar stood before the massive viewing screen in his command chamber, watching the stars drift past as his flagship moved through space. The Zaphirian had ruled 12 star systems for 3,000 years, and in all that time, no enemy had ever truly challenged their power. His dark blue skin bore the ritual scars of countless victories, each mark telling the story of another world brought under Zaphirian control. The door behind him hissed open, and Commander Velthak entered carrying a datapad. The younger officer moved with the careful grace of someone who knew that disappointing an admiral could mean death. Velthak's own scars were fewer, but his ambition burned bright in his golden eyes. Admiral, the scout reports from the Outer Rim have arrived, Velthak said, his voice steady despite the nervousness that flickered across his features. Kethvar turned slowly, his massive frame casting shadows across the metallic walls. At nearly 8 feet tall, he towered over most of his crew, and his presence commanded immediate attention. Show me what our scouts have found in the distant systems. The viewing screen changed to display a small blue world orbiting a yellow star. Data streams flowed across the bottom, showing atmospheric composition, gravity levels, and energy signatures. Kethvar studied the information with the practiced eye of someone who had evaluated hundreds of potential conquests. They call themselves humans, Velthak explained, consulting his datapad. They have achieved faster-than-light travel only recently. Their ships are crude, built from industrial materials rather than proper military composites. Their weapons appear to be basic energy projectors and chemical explosives. Kethvar nodded thoughtfully. Population size? Approximately 8 billion on their homeworld, with small colonies scattered across nearby systems. Their total fleet consists of perhaps 200 vessels, most of them cargo haulers converted for military use. The admiral almost smiled. 200 ships against the might of the Zaphirian fleet was laughable. His own battle group contained more firepower than these humans had likely ever seen. Have they made contact with any other civilized species? No, sir, they appear to be completely isolated. Our scouts observed them for several months without being detected. They show no signs of advanced shielding technology or sophisticated sensor arrays. Kethavar walked closer to the screen, studying the tactical data. The humans had established defensive platforms around their outer worlds, but the weapons appeared primitive. Their ships moved slowly compared to Zaphirian vessels, and their formations lacked the disciplined precision that marked truly dangerous opponents. What is High Command's assessment? He asked. Velthak straightened. They classify this as a routine subjugation mission. The species shows no exceptional traits that would require special consideration. Standard conquest protocols should be sufficient. The Admiral had heard similar reports many times before. The galaxy was full of species that thought themselves strong until they faced Zaphirian might. Some surrendered immediately upon seeing the superior technology. Others fought brief, hopeless battles before accepting their fate. All eventually became part of the Empire. There is one unusual incident to report, Velthak continued. One of our scout ships encountered a human patrol vessel near their 4th planet. The humans attempted to communicate before opening fire. Attempted communication? Kethavar raised an eyebrow. Most species either fled immediately or attacked without warning when faced with unknown ships. Yes, sir. They broadcast on multiple frequencies, apparently trying to establish peaceful contact. When our scout began scanning their vessel, they gave several warnings before engaging. Kethvar found this mildly interesting but not concerning. Some species preferred diplomacy over immediate violence, though the outcome was always the same once Zaphirian intentions became clear. Damage to our scout? Minimal. Their weapons barely penetrated our outer shielding. The scout withdrew after collecting sufficient data about their technology and defensive capabilities. The Admiral turned back to the viewing screen, watching as the display cycled through images of human settlements. Their cities sprawled across continents in chaotic patterns, unlike the ordered geometries of properly civilized worlds. Their ships looked like they had been assembled by different manufacturers with no unified design philosophy. Everything about these humans suggested a young, disorganized species that had stumbled into space travel through luck rather than true advancement. They would likely surrender after a single demonstration of Zaphirian power, making this campaign shorter than most. Have the War Council prepare invasion plans, Kethvar commanded. Standard protocol should suffice. We will need perhaps 20 ships for the initial assault, with reinforcements available if their resistance proves more stubborn than expected. Velthak made notes on his datapad. Shall I request volunteers for the assault force? No need. I will lead this campaign personally. Kethvar had been feeling restless lately, and a simple conquest might provide interesting diversion from administrative duties. Assemble the Crimson Talons. 12 ships should be more than adequate for subduing this species. The Crimson Talons represented the elite of the Zaphirian fleet. Each ship was crewed by veteran warriors who had proven themselves in dozens of campaigns. Their vessels incorporated the most advanced weapons and shielding technology the Empire could produce. Against primitive humans, they would be unstoppable. Admiral, shall we attempt communication with the humans before beginning the assault? Velthak asked. Kethvar considered this. The standard approach was to offer surrender terms before opening fire, partly for diplomatic reasons and partly because some species provided useful intelligence when they capitulated quickly. Yes, we will follow proper protocols. Broadcast the standard ultimatum when we reach their system. Give them one opportunity to surrender peacefully. Most species took that opportunity. Fighting the Zaphirian Empire was suicide, and even primitive civilizations usually recognize this fact when confronted with overwhelming force. The humans would likely prove no different. Estimated timeline for departure? Velthak inquired. 1 week. That should give us sufficient time to prepare supplies and brief the crew commanders. Kethvar moved toward the door, already thinking about the tactical arrangements for what should be a straightforward campaign. As the Admiral left his command chamber, he felt satisfied with the prospect ahead. Another species would soon join the Empire, adding their resources and labor to Zaphirian strength. The humans might provide some useful industrial capacity once they were properly controlled. He had no way of knowing that this campaign would be unlike any other in Zaphirian history. The humans waiting in their small corner of space possessed something that no previous enemy had demonstrated: the absolute refusal to accept defeat, regardless of the odds against them. The stage was set for the Empire's greatest victory to become its most devastating surprise. The decision came during an emergency meeting in Earth's deepest military bunkers. Admiral Foster stood before a holographic display showing the Zaphirian fleet's steady advance toward the inner planets. Behind her, representatives from every human colony and military force waited for orders that could determine their species' fate. "We cannot win a defensive war," Foster announced, her voice cutting through the tense atmosphere. "Their technology is too advanced, their ships too powerful. If we wait for them to reach Earth, we will lose everything." President Brooks leaned forward in her chair. "What do you propose?" Foster activated a new display showing the Kepler system, where long-range scouts had detected the aliens' main supply base. Intelligence indicates they have established a forward operating center here, approximately 40 light-years from Sol. This base supports their invasion fleet and houses additional ships. General Pete Harrison, commander of the Mars Defense Corps, studied the tactical data. "You want us to attack their base while they're attacking us?" "Not just attack," Foster replied. "Destroy it completely. Without their supply line and reinforcements, the ships in our system become isolated. We can pick them off over time." The audacity of the plan stunned everyone present. Humanity had never attempted an operation beyond their own solar system, and now they were proposing to assault a heavily fortified alien base with ships that were technologically centuries behind their enemies. Captain Steve Adams stepped forward from the group of volunteer commanders. His weathered face bore the scars of fighting in the outer system battles, and his uniform was stained with smoke from his damaged ship. "Admiral, my crews are ready. Give us the ships and we'll take that base." Foster nodded approvingly. Adams had proven himself in the asteroid field fights, using suicidal tactics that somehow achieved impossible results. If anyone could lead this desperate mission, it was him. "We have 20 ships available for the assault," she continued. "Modified cargo haulers, mining vessels, and 3 actual warships. The enemy base is defended by at least 30 Zaphirian vessels, including some of their largest ships." Commander Julie Baker, who had survived the Jupiter battles by hiding in the gas giant storms, spoke up. "What about support? If we're trapped out there, there will be no support," Foster admitted. "This is a one-way mission. You go in, destroy everything you can, and hope some of you make it home." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. They were asking for volunteers to fly primitive ships across interstellar space and attack a superior enemy on their own ground with no hope of rescue. Every single commander in the room volunteered immediately. 2 weeks later, the human assault fleet gathered at the edge of the solar system. 20 ships that looked more like a salvage convoy than a military force prepared for humanity's first interstellar offensive operation. Their hulls were patched with salvaged metal. Their weapons were improvised modifications of industrial equipment, and their crews were volunteers who had never expected to leave their home system. Adams stood on the bridge of his flagship, a converted heavy transport that had been renamed Freedom's Edge. Around him, his crew worked to prepare systems that had never been designed for combat operations. The ship's cargo holds were filled with explosives, spare parts, and supplies for what everyone knew would be a desperate fight. "All ships, prepare for hyperspace jump," he broadcast to his fleet. "Remember, we are not just fighting for ourselves today. We are fighting so that every human child can grow up free." The jump to Kepler took 18 hours, during which the human crews had time to contemplate the magnitude of their mission. Many wrote final messages to their families, while others spent the time modifying weapons and planning attack strategies. When they emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system, the sight that greeted them was both terrifying and inspiring. The Zaphirian base sprawled across 3 asteroid clusters, with massive ships docked at construction facilities and supply depots. Defense platforms bristled with weapons that could destroy entire fleets, but Adams smiled grimly as he studied the alien formations. The Zaphirians had built their base according to standard military doctrine, designed to repel conventional attacks from civilized opponents. They had not prepared for humans. "All ships execute Plan Chaos," he commanded. Plan Chaos was exactly what it sounded like. Instead of approaching in formation like a proper military force, the human ships scattered in random directions at maximum speed. Some headed for the outer defense platforms. Others dove toward the base's industrial centers, and several simply charged directly at the largest enemy ships. The Zaphirian base commander, War Master Thexnil, watched the approaching human force with confusion. Their attack pattern made no tactical sense, leaving them vulnerable to concentrated fire while preventing them from bringing their own weapons to bear effectively. "All defense platforms, open fire," he ordered. "Target the largest human vessels first." But as Zaphirian energy weapons lanced out across space, the humans demonstrated once again their talent for unpredictable tactics. Ships that appeared to be fleeing suddenly reversed course and attacked from unexpected angles. Others used the base's own defensive structures as cover, forcing the aliens to choose between shooting at humans and damaging their own facilities. Captain Nick Turner commanded a squadron of mining ships that had been equipped with industrial explosives. His plan was simple but effective: ram the base's fuel storage facilities and detonate everything at once. "Follow me in," he broadcast to his crews. "We're going to light up this base like the 4th of July." Turner's ships plunged toward the base's central supply complex, absorbing massive damage from defensive fire. 2 ships were destroyed before reaching their targets, but the survivors pressed on with grim determination. When Turner's flagship struck the main fuel depot, the resulting explosion could be seen from the edge of the system. Commander Beth Wilson led another group in an attack on the base's communication arrays. Her ships used welding equipment and industrial lasers to systematically destroy the sensors and transmitters that coordinated the base's defenses. "Target every antenna and relay station," she ordered her crews. "If we can blind them, the others will have an easier time getting through." Wilson's tactics proved devastatingly effective. The Zaphirians discovered that their sophisticated command and control systems became useless when the hardware was physically destroyed by crude but determined attacks. The battle raged for hours, with human ships swarming through the base like angry insects. They used tactics that no military academy taught: ramming attacks, improvised explosives, and weapons that had been designed for mining asteroids rather than fighting wars. War Master Thexnil found his carefully planned defenses crumbling under an assault that followed no recognizable pattern. Human ships appeared where they should not be able to penetrate, attacking targets that made no strategic sense until the cumulative damage began to tell. "Sir, they have destroyed our primary fuel reserves," reported his tactical officer. "Multiple construction facilities are burning, and we have lost contact with sectors 7 through 12. Thexenil studied the tactical display with growing alarm. Individual human ships were no match for his forces, but their chaotic swarm tactics were achieving what conventional military assault could never accomplish. "Recall all ships to defend the command center," he ordered. "We must prevent them from reaching the main base." But Adams had anticipated this response. As Zaphirian ships moved to protect their command facilities, human forces struck at targets throughout the base complex. They destroyed supply depots, damaged construction yards, and set fires that spread through interconnected facilities. Captain Paul Davis led the final assault on the base's main command ship, a massive vessel that served as Thexnil's flagship. His attack force consisted of 5 damaged human ships against a warship that outmassed them 50-1. "All ships ramming speed," Davis commanded. "We end this now." The human vessels accelerated toward their target, absorbing devastating fire from the command ship's defensive weapons. 3 ships were destroyed in the final approach, but Davis and 1 other captain reached their destination. The collision when Davis's ship struck the Zaphirian command vessel sent shockwaves through both hulls. The explosion that followed destroyed the alien flagship and knocked out the base's central command systems. As the battle reached its climax, Thexenil realized that his supposedly impregnable base was being systematically destroyed by an enemy that refused to follow any rational military strategy. His final transmission to the hegemony carried a note of desperate warning. "These humans fight like no species we have ever encountered. They do not seek victory through superior tactics or technology. They simply refuse to lose, regardless of the cost." The transmission ended as human explosives tore through the base's remaining structures, leaving nothing but debris and the expanding glow of fires that would burn for days among the shattered asteroids. The news of Kepler base's destruction reached Admiral Kethvar as his fleet approached Earth's orbital defenses. The report came through garbled transmissions from fleeing supply ships, carrying impossible tales of primitive humans destroying the Empire's most advanced forward operating base. Kethvar stood motionless on his command bridge for several minutes, processing information that challenged everything he believed about warfare and civilization. An entire base defended by 30 warships and staffed by thousands of trained personnel had been obliterated by 20 human vessels using weapons that barely qualified as military equipment. "Admiral, shall we continue the assault on Earth?" asked Commander Velthak, his voice uncertain for the first time since the campaign began. Kethvar studied the tactical displays showing Earth's defensive positions. Human ships clustered around their homeworld in formations that made no sense according to proper military doctrine. They had positioned cargo haulers alongside warships, civilian vessels mixed with military craft, and defensive platforms that appeared to be constructed from industrial equipment. "Yes, we continue," he decided, "but we do not underestimate them again." The final battle began as Earth's sun rose over the planet's eastern hemisphere. Millions of humans watched from the surface as alien ships approached their world, knowing that everything they had ever known depended on the outcome of the next few hours. President Brooks broadcast from the Emergency Command Center deep beneath Washington. "To every human in the system, to every ship and station and settlement, this is our moment. We did not ask for this war, but we will finish it." Captain Lisa Parker commanded the defense vessel Defiance at the center of Earth's orbital defense line. Around her, ships from every human colony and settlement formed a protective barrier around their homeworld. The fleet included military vessels, converted civilian ships, orbital platforms, and even private spacecraft whose owners had volunteered for the final battle. "All ships, remember what we learned in the outer system," Parker broadcast. They expect us to fight like a civilized military force. We will show them that desperate humans follow different rules. The Zaphirian fleet approached in perfect formation, their weapons charging for what Kethavar expected would be the decisive blow against human resistance. But as his ships entered weapons range, the human defense force did something that stunned even the experienced admiral. Instead of maintaining defensive positions around Earth, half the human fleet suddenly accelerated directly at the Zaphirian formation. Ships that should have been protecting their homeworld charged across space in what appeared to be a suicidal frontal assault. Commander Rick Thompson led this desperate charge in his ship Guardian, followed by dozens of vessels whose crews had volunteered for what everyone knew was a one-way mission. Their plan was simple: tie up the alien fleet in close-quarters combat where superior technology mattered less than courage and determination. All ships, pick your targets and ram if necessary, Thompson commanded. Make every second count. The collision between the two fleets created a massive space battle unlike anything in recorded history. Human ships swarmed around Zaphirian vessels, using tactics that ranged from conventional weapons fire to ramming attacks to explosions of improvised weapons that had been designed for mining and construction. Captain Sandra Walsh coordinated the second phase of Earth's defense from her command position on Luna. As the fleets engaged each other in chaotic combat, she activated weapon systems that the Zaphirians had never suspected existed. Fire all hidden batteries, she commanded. Across the lunar surface, concealed missile launchers and energy weapons emerged from camouflaged installations. The humans had spent months preparing Earth's moon as a massive weapons platform, hiding military equipment in mining facilities and research stations. The lunar bombardment caught several Zaphirian ships by surprise, damaging their engines and forcing them into lower orbits where Earth's orbital platforms could engage them more effectively. The aliens found themselves fighting not just human ships, but the entire Earth-Moon system that had been converted into a defensive weapon. Admiral Kethavar realized that the situation was spiraling beyond his control. His sophisticated fleet was being degraded by an enemy that used every available resource as a weapon. Human tactics defied all military logic, but they were proving devastatingly effective against opponents who expected rational behavior. "Sir, we have lost 6 ships and taken heavy damage to 4 others," reported his tactical officer. "The humans are using their entire civilization as a military force." This was the truth that the Zaphirians had failed to understand. While civilized species maintained clear distinctions between military and civilian resources, humans in desperate circumstances mobilized everything they possessed. Their cargo ships became bombers, their industrial equipment became weapons, and their entire population became combatants. Captain Amy Collins piloted her converted mining ship in a desperate attack run against Kethavar's flagship. Her vessel had been damaged in 3 previous engagements, but she pressed on toward her target, with the determination that had come to characterize human resistance. "This is for everyone. We have lost," she broadcast as her ship's weapons fired at point-blank range into the alien hull. Collins's sacrifice damaged the flagship's main weapon systems, but more importantly, it demonstrated something that terrified the Zaphirian admiral. These humans would not stop fighting until every last one of them was dead. Victory against such an enemy would require the complete extermination of their species. The battle reached its climax when Captain Jake Morrison, the patrol officer whose first encounter had started the war, led a final assault against the remaining Zaphirian ships. His vessel Defender had been rebuilt and upgraded with salvaged alien technology, making it one of the most powerful ships in the human fleet. "All remaining ships, form up on me," Morrison commanded. "We finish this now." The last phase of the battle became a running fight throughout the inner solar system, with damaged ships from both sides pursuing each other among the planets and moons. Human forces used their knowledge of local space conditions to advantage, leading alien ships into asteroid fields, solar radiation zones, and gravitational anomalies that degraded their superior technology. Admiral Kethavar found himself commanding a fleet that was being systematically destroyed not by superior firepower, but by an enemy that refused to accept defeat under any circumstances. His remaining ships were damaged, his crews were demoralized, and his enemy seemed to grow stronger with each passing hour. The final moment came when Morrison's ship engaged Kethavar's flagship in single combat above Earth's North Pole. The two vessels circled each other like ancient gladiators, trading weapons fire that lit up the darkness of space. "Human commander, your resistance is futile," Kethvar broadcast. "Surrender now, and your species will be allowed to survive as part of our empire." Morrison's response came without hesitation. "We would rather die free than live as slaves." The human captain's ship was smaller and less advanced, but Morrison used every trick he had learned during months of fighting. He led the alien flagship into Earth's upper atmosphere, where the larger ship's systems began to overheat, then struck with everything he had left. Both ships were destroyed in the final exchange. But the explosion marked the end of Zaphirian resistance in human space. The few surviving alien vessels fled toward the outer system, carrying news of their defeat back to the Empire. As the smoke cleared and the wreckage cooled, humans throughout the solar system began to realize that they had achieved the impossible. An entire invasion fleet representing the elite of an interstellar empire had been defeated by a species that had barely learned to travel between planets. The victory came at a terrible cost. Hundreds of ships had been lost, thousands of brave men and women had died, and human civilization bore scars that would take decades to heal. But they had proven something crucial to themselves and to the galaxy beyond. President Brooks addressed the survivors from Earth's rebuilt capital. "We have shown the universe that some things cannot be conquered by superior technology alone. Freedom, courage, and the refusal to surrender are weapons that no empire can overcome." The war was over, but its consequences would echo across the galaxy. In the distant halls of the Zaphirian Empire, military leaders studied the reports from Sol System with growing alarm. They had discovered a species that possessed something more dangerous than advanced weapons or faster ships. Humans had demonstrated the one thing that terrified every empire in the galaxy: the absolute refusal to accept defeat. Regardless of the odds against them, the galaxy would never be the same, and the small blue world in an unremarkable star system had earned its place among the powers that shaped the future of all intelligent life.